Hello YouTube. Recently I have been creating a series of custom miniatures for my upcoming D&D game where the players are all starting off as zero level adventurers that are orphans, part of this guy Caster's crew, and this will be run using the Dungeon World rule set and the Funnel World expansion for doing low level starting characters into a full campaign. And in making these, I thought it might be fun to kind of share how I've been doing it. I am not an artist, I am a programmer, but the technology using AI and a workflow to do things like this has gotten so advanced that it's actually fairly easy to pull off and come up with really, really nice results. This is kind of what I've gotten so far for this set. I've made all of these guys using various AI-backed workflows. However, none of it was done purely AI or using purely one AI tool. There is a human, me, involved in the process. But anyone with a little bit of imagination can create 3D printable miniatures for their own game. And I'm going to show you how I did these. So let's get started. So we're going to call this step 1, or the concept art generation. This is where we're going to use a text to image AI generation to create the basic image that we're going to convert into a mesh and then into a printable miniature. So the reason I use text to image first rather than just going straight to a service that generates from text to 3D object is it gives you a lot more control, and it's much easier to do refinement on an image. Let's say we want to generate a lizard man, and that lizard man generates with a fat tail. Well, we can use text image refinement to remove that fat tail, or to add a backpack, or change a pose far quicker and far easier than we can with a text to 3D control. However, if you want something simple and you don't care about the random output, you can go straight to a text to 3D control. Anyway, this is the workflow I like. So I start off with Google's Gemini, the Nano Banana model. I go create image, and then I describe what I want to make. A D&D style miniature let's make this an orc pirate captain with eye patch. Okay, that should be good enough to get started. So let's go ahead and run that. Something real simple. There are many text to image models. I like the Nano Banana because it's coming out with pretty decent results every time. Kind of like the monkey, but maybe not. So let's remove the monkey. Like I said, the reason we use the text to image first is that lets us have fine control over the generation of the image. Okay, we lost our pirate hat. Add a pirate captain hat. That's pretty good. Yeah, I kind of like that. That works pretty well. So we're going to save that locally for the folder to fix it. Well, let's just do a new image. Create a D&D style miniature of an orc pirate crew member with peg leg. Let's try that. See how it turns out. He looks meaner than our captain. I actually kind of like that. We're going to save that one. We'll go ahead and make that one. Let's see. Remove. So what happens if we try to remove that anchor? Okay, I kind of like that. Although I did like the anchor look, it's pretty cool. Let's save this. I don't know what the heck this thing is. He's got it over his shoulder, some kind of baton or baton. Let's work with these two guys here. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. Okay, for this next step, we're going to use Comfy UI, which is a free and open source AI platform engine, and we're going to use this to refine our concept art to get it ready for 3D model generation. Now, you can actually do the complete AI workflow in Comfy UI. You can do text to image, image refinement, image to 3D, etc., all in this one solution. However, I have found that I'm getting better results using the Nano Banana Google AI for generating my initial image. I just like the style of image it's coming up with. I do like using the Quinn model, the Quinn 2.5 model for image refinement, which is giving me better results as I try to manipulate that image. And then I like using Trello as my mesh generation. I'm getting better results with that than anything I've managed to do in this particular solution so far. However, if you don't want to spend money on external services, or want to keep everything under one shop, and you have a decent graphics card with CUDA cores, you can use Comfy UI and do the whole thing. Let's go and get started here. I'm going to bring in one of my images. This is our pirate captain that we created. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to first make a plain white background. We already kind of have that, but there are some shadows in there. Just want to remove anything that the 3D mesh generation AI could get confused on. So we're going to make it a nice, plain, simple background. No shadows. And the second thing I want to do is remove the base. I like to print my bases separate from my model, and I have had some hit or miss with this, actually, kind of separating these into two images. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it does, it simplifies. I can make two meshes and then print them separately. If it doesn't work, I can go ahead and generate the mesh with the base and then in Blender split them apart. So, which can be easy and it can be complicated depending on how complex the base in the area where the foot meets the base and all that is. But anyway, I'll show you kind of the process I go through. Now, right now we're waiting for the model to load and the image to process. The first time I run one of these, it tends to take a bit, so I'm going to pause the video for a second while this runs. Alright, so the image finally generated, and there isn't a lot of difference. I think there's still a tiny little bit of shadow there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Now we're going to take our updated image and turn that to the input image, which is the little bit cleaner image. Now we're going to remove the base. Or remove the miniature base. Let's try that. This one should run a lot faster because the model is already loaded. Comfy UI actually runs in a command prompt, so you can actually watch the process here. But I tend to like to watch the UI. So there we go. We've got our pirate captain. We've removed the base. Now using the same input image, I'm going to change this. Remove the figure and keep the base exactly as it is. Let's go ahead and run that. If this works out, that will give us both the pirate and the base as separate images from which to generate the 3D mesh. There we go. Okay, so now we have the base separated from the mesh, or from the pirate, which together should look like this when we get it done. Now when I get it into Blender, we are going to make a few changes, but we will figure that out once we get there. So let's do this. Let's do our other pirate. Let's do the one without the anchor. The reason for that is the anchor is came in like double-ended, and while I can fix that in Blender, I don't want to spend that much time on this particular video. Might do that later. So here's the one that's carrying some kind of like sail batten or something like that. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to remove the background, make plain white background, run it, and then we'll then we'll split out the figure from the base as well and see how that works. Okay, so now I'm going to use Tripo 3D. This is a paid service, but you can use it for free. I believe if you sign up for a free account, you can get like 300 credits per day, and you don't have access to all the features, but it does a really, really good job. And if you do want all the features, it does an amazing job. So here's some orphans that I created for my upcoming D&D game, where the players start out as a bunch of orphans working for a Fagin type boss in a dilapidated city. So I made a bunch of these. These are just bystanders for one scene. I printed these up and they turned out really nice. So let's go ahead and generate our pirate. So let's generate the pirate captain first. We simply drag the image in here. If we wanted to generate a multi-image view, we can: front, left, right, and back. If you want something really specific and you want to generate like something specific on his back or on his side, you can do that. But I'm getting a really good results just using the frontal image. I'm not going to change any of the default settings, but I am using the premium account, so I've got the ultra turned on, which gives us a really dense mesh, which just gives us more to work with in Blender. So we're going to go ahead and generate the pirate captain. Just hit generate. Now that is generating, and since it's already generating and I do have a premium account, I can queue up multiple requests. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones as well. So we're going to get rid of the pirate captain, and we're going to add in our pirate crew member, and we're going to generate that one as well. No changes, just change the default image. Now I have two processes generating. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to bring in our Captain's Pirate Base, and we're going to generate that one. And then we're going to bring in our Pirate Treasure Base. And I think what I'm going to do is swap these bases. I think the Pirate Captain is going to have the treasure base, and then the other guy is going to get the one with just the rope and stuff on it. So now we have our 4 image requests generating. If we come back over here, you can kind of see a sort of a preview of what it's generating as it does it. It does a pretty neat job with the way the voxel cloud generates. I don't know how often this updates during the process, but it looks cool. Gives you something to look at. I'm going to pause the video for a second. This may take 10-15 minutes for these to run. All right, so the generation process has worked. We've got our model here. I can see 2 things I'm going to want to do in Blender to make this look a little nicer. We're going to remove the sword hilt from the sword scabbard because he's got a sword in his hand. We're also going to try to reshape the sheath a little bit so it looks like this is the sword that belongs in it. And I'm going to probably remove this crazy looking flintlock thing here, but everything else I think on this guy looks really nice. Let's look at our crew member. He turned out really well. I like his tattoos end up being more like carvings, but you know, hey, they're orcs. They're kind of crazy, you know. Same kind of deal here, although I think I like this. His looks more like a dagger, so we'll leave that there, and maybe he just picked up the sword from a rack or something. I don't know what the deal is with this buckle. It's kind of weird looking. We could fix that maybe, but kind of like this batten thing he's carrying, and his parrot looks really cool. So we're going to keep him. And then our 2 bases. We've got our first base. I don't know what these things turned out to be. Some kind of whey bread, maybe? I don't know. But the base looks pretty cool. And then the advanced base, also looks kind of neat. So if I were doing this as a real project, I would probably go back and refine these images so that maybe these look more like coins. But, you know, for the purposes of this video, I think this is just fine. So what we need to do now is download these meshes. I'm going to export. I'm going to download this one. I'll make this my pirate captain. And we're going to download it as a GLB file. I'm going to pull the textures just for fun. We don't need them for 3D printing, but it doesn't hurt to have them. So export. This takes a second for it to calculate its export. Just have a curiosity about something here too. Let's try this on the next. Okay, there, that one exported. I'm going to grab this guy. I've noticed that when I download these, their position in the thumbnail looks sideways. I'm making sure this guy is kind of straight onto the camera as I export it. I want to see if that has any effect. Pirate orc crew. We're going to call that pirate orc crew member. We're going to export that one. All right, this is the second to last stage. This is where we do our cleanup and manipulation in Blender for anything that we want to change, and we get our model ready for the 3D printer. We'll do in the next or the last prep stage is slicing, which we'll do in another program. This is where we do the majority of our manual work here. So I've opened up in Blender a project that I use for prepping my miniatures. This is one of the main bad guys from my upcoming D&D campaign. He's the Fagin type character that runs the gang of orphans. The reason I'm using this is because when you move from one software to the other, using 3D models, they all have different scaling kind of setups. So what I want to do is make sure that when I prep these models and I export them from Blender, that when I import them into my 3D printing program, that they're already set to the right size so that they will, when printed, they will look correct on my table with the other miniatures that I have. So this guy has already been tested and printed so that I know he is the right height for about 33 millimeters at eye height. This guy is designed to be slightly taller than the average human because he's supposed to be really, really tall in the game. So his eye height, the standard human miniature, maybe where the bottom of his nose is the normal 32 millimeter eye height. So I use this guy as sort of a scale for prepping my miniatures. So we're going to start off by bringing in our downloaded mesh. I'm going to go to my downloaded folder and I'm going to grab the pirate captain. Let's do him first. And I'm just going to drag him in and just drop him, and I'm going to import the GLTIFF. Now if you notice, he is teeny tiny here. Right? So the Tripo that I use to generate is using a different scale than Blender. So our first step is going to be to scale him to the right height compared to my base model. For you, if you don't already have one, you can just create a box and then print it out until you get the right scale, and then use that scale as your eye height for your first miniature. Then once you have the first one, you can use that miniature as your scale for all additional miniatures. It's more or less how I did it. I started off with a cylinder, and then I printed that cylinder, and it was teeny tiny on my printer. And then I just kind of iterated through until I got one that was about the same height as my old lead miniatures. So let's come in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to prep this guy. So the first thing I'm going to do in Blender, I want to rotate this guy so he's facing the camera. I'm going to click Y forward, and then I'm going to hit the R key for rotate and the Z key for locking it to the Z axis. And then I'm just going to rotate him around until he's kind of facing the camera. There. I just find it easier to work that way. Now the second thing I want to do is move this orange dot here, that's the origin point of the model, down between his feet, so that when I scale him, he's going to scale with his feet staying on the ground. So what I'm going to do here is simply go into edit mode by hitting tab. He's solid orange now because he's a really dense point cloud. I want to move all of these point up, so I'm going to hit G for move and Z to lock the Z axis. And I'm just going to drag him up to where his feet are on the red axis there, which is our ground. In that point, the origin point kind of stays the same. So now if I come back here, he is now set to where when I scale him, the scale position is going to be that orange dot. So his feet will stay on the ground, and then he will grow to whatever size I want him. So let's go ahead and object, apply scale, object, apply rotation, and now we're ready to scale him up to match our miniature. So the easiest way to do this is to simply go S for scale, and then move our mouse out, and then maybe S for scale again, and just come up a little bit more. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring him to about here, and then I'm going to hit S for scale, but then Z, and then scale him up this way just a tad. Now we're going to G for move, and X for restrict to the X-axis. We're going to slide him out to the side here. Let's kind of compare him a little bit. So he is more stocky and gorilla-like than our human character, and his eye height puts him just about the same size as a human character. I think this is going to work fine. So we're going to make this our first character, and I'm just going to slide him off to the side again. So G for move, X to lock to the X-axis. I'm just going to set him off to the side. Now let's bring in our second character, our crewman. We're going to drop him in here too, and import, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to hit the period key on my numpad to zoom in on him. I'm going to lock to Y forward just so I can see clearly, R for rotate, and Z to lock to the Z axis, and then I'm going to rotate him till he's just more or less facing forward. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then tab to go into edit mode. If you come in and these are not all selected, just hit the A key to select all, and then we're going to G for move and Z to lock to the Z axis, and we're just going to bring him up to his feet are roughly on the ground. And that doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. And we're going to tab out, and then we're going to come out, and we're going to scale him as well. So scale, scale. We're going to probably make him a little shorter than the captain over here. So we're going to G for move, X to the X-axis. We're going to bring him over here to stand by our captain. And we're going to go back to Y forward again. And I think I'm going to scale him, S to scale, and just scale him up just a wee bit. He's not quite as tall as his captain. I think he's like the first mate or something like that. So we don't need this guy anymore. So we're going to hit H to hide. We'll keep him around as our base for future miniatures. But I think these guys look pretty cool. G, X. Let's go ahead and bring in the bases. So I'll bring in the complicated base first. Import. And it came over here. We're going to tab in. I think what I'm going to do here is go into top-down mode, and then I'm going to hit, this time I'm in top-down mode, so when I move stuff, it's going to stay locked to the horizontal plane it's on. I'm just going to G, and I'm just going to move it over here till it's under our captain, S to scale, and I'm just going to scale it up till it looks about right. What I did there is I actually went the wrong way, and it scaled it upside down, so I'm just bringing it back this way. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Yep. That works good. So we're going to come back here to the front view, and then we're going to G to move that kind of into position. So where he's kind of there. And I think we're going to have to R for rotate, lock to Z, unless we'll do this, and G, Shift Z to lock to that plane. I think that kind of works. And I might have to do some cleanup work to get rid of that coin or whatnot. So it's GZ, and we're going to move this guy up a little bit. Our coin, he's standing on it. That's good. Okay, so now we have a captain with a base, and he's got an interesting little base with his little treasure chest there and all that. I think that's good. Let's bring in the other base. And I'm just going to bring it into the import scene. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to Z for a top-down view. We're going to G for free move along that plane. We'll bring it over here under our miniature. Scale, and we're just going to drag it out. Scale again, drag it a little more. We're going to try to make the bases roughly the same size. Although, you know, I used to try to make them always exactly the same size, but depending on the miniature, they don't need to be exact. The same. I think that's good. And let's R to rotate, lock to Z, and let's just spin that around a little bit. That's good. And G and Z, and we're going to move this up until we know he's kind of like that. All right. So now we have our two miniatures. I think for our pirate crewman, I don't think we really need to do any edit to this mesh at all. We just need to prep it for print. And I think we'll start with him because that will be the easiest one. We're going to repeat that same process with the two bases, although I may try to get rid of this one coin or whatever that is under his boot. So we might kind of mess with that a little bit. And then for the captain, we do have a couple edits to make. So let's go ahead and start. And then we're going to do the same cleanup process with him as well. So let's start with this guy. So the first thing I want to do is go into Tab and Edit. And we're going to hit A to select all. And as you can see, the number of dots that he is made up of is insane. He's roughly 2 million polygons, which my printer can handle. I can print that, but there's no need to save out this model this big. So right now I'm in sort of textured mode. I'm going to go into flat shaded, and what I've got here is a matte cap material. So if you go into texture shaded, click this drop down. Normally you'd be in studio. I come over to matte cap and use this sort of clay colored texture because that gives you a nice view of all the physical detail of the geometry. So I think that's really nice. And what I'm going to do now is make this so he is not made up of so many dots. We don't need all those dots to preserve this detail. So I'm going to go ahead and add a modifier. I'm going to add a decimate modifier. And for these models that I am exporting from Trippo into Blender, I have found through experimentation that 0.2 is a really good starting spot. And we're going to see that number drop from almost 2 million down to about 300,000, okay, 378,000, which is a good place to start. We're going to apply. As you see, we didn't lose any detail in the physical geometry with that change. Everything looks really nice. Concerned about the torn up geometry here on the planks. That could possibly need a little bit of cleanup, and I would normally do that with sculpting, and I'll maybe show you that as well. So let's, actually we're going to do some sculpting on the main figure, so we will save that for there. Okay, I think he's looking better, but I think we can do better on the geometry. So I'm going to add in another decimate. And if we want to see what that actually did, we can come up here to this overlays and turn on the wireframe. And you can see how much a lot of those dots turned into actual polygons, but still preserve the detail. It's pretty smart about how it does it. So we're going to add a decimate. We're going to maybe knock off another 50%. So let's go 0.05, 0.5. Yeah, we didn't lose it. I'm going to take that back off. I prefer to look at it in the matte cap shaded mode because that really lets me see if I lost any physical detail. And I don't think I did. There's a little bit of pixelation going on now on like the cloth here. And I think that's okay because when I print that, you're not going to see that. But all of like the tattoos and all that, it's all still pretty nicely sharp. We didn't lose any physical shape geometry. We just got a little bit of pixelation on flat surfaces, and that is just fine. So we're going to stick with that. I'm going to hit apply. And we're going to call him done and ready to print. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with these two bases. So we're going to come in here, edit mode, tab, and we can see this is still high poly, almost 2 million. So we're going to go ahead and add that modifier. It's the decimate. I like to start with 0.2. I have so far not found that I've lost any detail going down that deep, but if I go much further, it can start messing up the model. So I will start with this and then apply. And we're down to about almost 400,000 polygons, which is much easier to work with. And then I'm going to go ahead and maybe add that same modifier again. Decimate, that's 9.5, 0.5. Okay, we did lose a tiny bit of detail on these coins when I did that, and I think that's okay. We're not that concerned with what that looks like. So let's go ahead and apply this, and we'll call this one done. And if we turn on our wireframe again, you can see that it's still fairly dense, but it's not nearly as dense as it was to begin with. So that's good. Turn the wireframe back off. Let's get this other one done here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add, oh, there's something I forgot to do on both of these guys. Let's go ahead and do that now. So if we come in here and we select all, we want to be in vertex mode, right, which is this dot here. We're going to select all, and I'm going to hit M for merge, merge by distance, and I'm going to change this number to 0.005. And I just lost 93,507 vertices because the AI mesh generation creates a lot of overlapping kind of geometry and where pieces don't quite line up. If we come back out of here, oh, I went too far, sorry. Let's back up. I went way too far, I lost a lot of detail. Let's back up. There we go. Let's do that again. Let's go merge by distance, but instead of 005, let's go. Let's see how that worked. Okay, we didn't lose any detail, but we still lost like 20,000 polygons, which is much better. I normally do that merge at a higher level of density, and I just forgot to do it that time. So select all, merge by distance, and we'll keep that 005. Should anything that's like lined up right on top of each other, and we lost 37,000 polygons, which is great, and we didn't lose any detail at all. See that? Do the same thing here. Select all. Oh, this one we haven't done yet. So this one is still dense, which is great. So we're going to merge by distance, and here we are going to make it 0.005, 0. Let's try that. And come back over here. Oh no, okay, that's too far, even with the dense cloud. So we're going to go back, we're going to undo that. There we go. Okay, let's try it one more time. Actually, yeah. Merge by distance. Let's stick with what we did before, so 0.05. And we lost a lot, but we still have all of our detail. That's nice. Okay. I just like to do it the merger first and then the decimate, and I'm just getting better results when I do that. So let's decimate 0.2. And we're going to drop from almost 2 million down to about 300, 355. We apply. And the reason I do this in 2 steps is I'm just getting slightly better results when I do that, because usually if I go down to 0.2, I don't lose any detail. And then sometimes if I go down another 0.5, it's fine. Sometimes I can only go down about another 0.25. So it's really, get down to 0.2, which makes it a whole lot more responsive, and then see how much more farther I can get. So let's try 0.5 again, see if it works without losing detail. It did, so we're going to apply, and we're going to call these 3 done. Now what I'm going to do now is come in here. I'm going to hit the /, which hides everything but the guy I'm working on. So we did want to make a few changes here, so let's go ahead and do that. So for the starters, we're going to do what we did, same thing we did for the other guys. We're going to tab into edit, and then we're going to merge by distance. That 0.005 is working. We lost about 100,000 polygons, merged up on distance, which is good. Now we're going to go ahead and add the decimate and 0.2. to get rid of a bunch of polygons and merge together, overlapping faces and all that. And I didn't see how many we lost. Oh yeah, we lost millions, so we're good. Apply. And now I'm going to add the modifier again. Decimate, and let's keep a close eye, maybe on his face. It's a pretty high detailed area, so let's go ahead and drop that down 0.5 and just see if it goes too far. I saw a little bit of change, but we didn't lose any relevant detail. I think this is going to still print real nice, so I think we're going to stick with that and apply. Now, because we have a lot less geometry, when we come in here to do our edits, it's going to be easier. So I think what we're going to do here is we'll start off with modifying our sword sheath. His sword over here is kind of curved, so I'm going to kind of simulate that a little bit. We're going to turn on see-through mode, and I'm going to sort of try to grab as much of this sheath as I can, with hopefully out getting, no I didn't. I'm trying to grab as much sheath as I can without getting his coat. That's good. Okay, let's kind of line this up on that edge. We're going to G for grab, and I'm just going to drag this out a little bit, and then I'm going to rotate it a little bit. And I'm going to kind of try to make that look like it's for that other sword. Let's turn it back off. I think that'll do. It doesn't have to be perfect now for this. And then I want to remove that sword handle because this, he's already got a sword. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select a couple of these vertices up here. Hit Control plus on the keyboard to grow that selection. And take it as far down as I can without getting into the actual sheath. I'm going to just delete vertices. There we go. Now we need to clean this up. So let's kind of grab these guys right here. Period to kind of center up on that. By doing that, let's say I come out here and just grab the period. Okay, now my camera is sort of centered in on that position I just selected. And if I'm down here working and I'm trying to rotate around, it gets a little hard sometimes. So if you grab something that's in the area that you're working on and then hit the period on your numpad, it'll focus in on that, and that becomes the center of rotation. It just makes it a little bit easier to deal with. So yeah, we're going to try to get rid of these. Now, if I was more skilled in Blender, I'm sure there's ways to do this where it's a lot easier. So I've kind of selected those outermost ones. Now I'm going to use the C-select. Like I said, I'm sure there's probably easier ways to do this, but this is the way I know. So that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to just kind of get rid of C-select. I'm going to get rid of these sticking up segments. And delete vertices. Ideally, I just want this kind of hole here, which I think looks good. I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to select this edge, hold down the Alt key, and that actually worked. Okay, I'm going to scale this in. I'm going to hit F to fill. Now I filled that hole. Now what we're going to do is come out of edge mode. We're going to go into sculpt mode. I'm going to turn on Dino Topo here, hit enable. And then I'm going to come to this tool, which is sort of a density remesh tool. And I use that to kind of fix. So I'm just clicking on it. Actually, let's turn on so you can see what I'm doing here. Turn on the wireframe. And as you see, as I click on this, it's kind of remeshing around where I've clicked. And the internal circle there is the higher effect, and the outer circle is a lighter effect. Now, if I hold down the shift and do the same thing, it's going to kind of smooth that out. So it's kind of how I do my repairs, where especially where I put in a hole, right? So in this case, I want to smooth this out as best I can. I'm going to remesh this area here and then smooth it out. Just prevents me from getting a bunch of holes in my mesh that I don't want. We're gonna, let's change our tool. Let's go to the flatten tool. I want to try to flatten the surface down to kind of match the rest of the inside of the sheath. Kind of not doing what I want here. Let's turn off Dino Topo. Let's go to Clay Brush. And I'm holding the Alt key down to kind of reverse the brush here. And then I'm going to hold Shift to smooth, Alt to reverse the brush. This is sort of a clay drawing brush here. And I'm going to smooth, smooth, smooth. By the way, I'm not going over like all the different Blender shortcuts I'm using for this, because there are tons of videos out there on how to use Blender to do this kind of stuff. I'm going to go to the crease brush and try to fix that little crease. And then I'm going to smooth that out again. Crease. I think once that prints, that's going to look pretty nice. I could, in theory, use the crease brush, the sharper crease brush, and just kind of do something like this. So this is just clay stripes. Let's smooth that. Dino Topo back on. We can just kind of cave that in a little bit to make it look more like it's, a place where the sword's going to go. Once we print this out, it's going to be so small that it doesn't matter all that much. Yeah, that's good. Just give us a nice little shadow to show that that's where his sword goes. I think that's good. I'm not a big fan of this thing here, so we're going to go back into, actually we're already in sculpt mode. Let's go back to our retopology brush, which is here, and we're going to smooth that down. Again, there may be other ways to do this that are better and whatever. I'm not an artist. I'm still learning like the rest of you guys, but my goal here is just to make this freaking thing smaller. I think it looks silly sitting up there like that. See, how's that? That's better. Let's bring it. I like that better. I like that better. So let's call that done. Let's turn the wireframe back off. And let's go out of edit mode. And I think he looks pretty good. We've got our sheath. Let's fix where I did that stretching. We're going to go back into sculpt. We're in sculpt mode, so we're going to go back into our Dino Topo brush. Apply, and we're just going to where I stretched this geometry. We're just going to clean that up a little bit. Dino Topo and smooth. Remesh. To be honest, we probably don't even need to worry about smoothing too much here. We can just, maybe a little bit. All I'm doing is where I stretched out that geometry and it got those crazy lines. We're just cleaning that up a little bit. So once you print these, this super fine detail doesn't really show up anyway. It's going to be fairly smooth. And of course, we could use the same technique to, if I wanted to make this sword sheath a little fatter, you know, we could stretch this out and we could spend a lot of time on it. But I mean, for 3D printing our little pirate guy, I think this turns out pretty nice. So I don't see anything else that really needs to be monkeyed with. So let's call him done. So I'm going to hit the / again to bring back our hidden stuff. Now we've got 4 models. I'm going to come into object mode. We've got our captain, our crew, and our two base platforms. So what we're going to do is export these for 3D print. So we're going to hit File, Export, OBJ, and we're going to call, actually just put them right here. So the first thing we do is put selected only because we want to export all of these models as individual parts. And we don't need materials for 3D printing, so we're going to turn that off. That'll make the model size smaller. We're going to call this guy Pirate Captain and hit Export. And then we're going to select the other guy once it activates. It's still a fairly big model. Waiting for it to save. Okay, that's taking a minute. There we go. Now we're going to do the same thing. This one should go faster. So export, OBJ, selected only, materials off, and we're going to call this Pirate Crew. And we're going to hit save. And that was almost instant. I don't know why it took so long the first time. So we're going to save this as our Captain Base, export, OBJ, make sure selected only, materials off. We're going to call it Pirate Captain Base. And save. And then we'll do this one. Export OBJ. Now, you can also export as an STL, which a lot of FDM printers use better. I mean, it's up to you. I use OBJ because I use Chitubox to do my slicing, which we'll look at here in the next step, and it works really well with OBJs. And OBJ files can handle a lot higher poly count than STLs can. Base. So Pirate Crew Base, export. All right, so we have exported our 4 models. I'm going to go ahead and save my little project here. So if I want to come back and do anything else with it later, I can. And we are ready to move on to the next step. All right, so this is our last step for prepping our models for print. You can use a slicer of your choice. I use Chitubox because it is what is recommended for my Elegoo Saturn 2, which is what I use to do most of my 3D printing. I also have a Mars Pro 2, which if I were just going to print 1 or 2 miniatures, I would probably use that. It's smaller and whatever, but my Saturn, I don't know, I've just been using it mostly for the last few days, even for smaller prints. So let's go and bring in our Pirate Captain, and we're going to bring in our Pirate Crew Base, and we're going to bring in our Pirate Crew and our Captain Crew Base. So these are the models that I generated in Blender. They are already scaled for our tabletop because I did that in Blender. If you didn't, you can scale here inside of your slicing program. But the main thing I want to do is select all of these, which I am, and then I'm going to rotate them on the X by 45 degrees. Boom. So that is a better print angle for overhang. It's going to preserve as much detail on the front as possible. And now what we need to do is generate our supports. Back in the old days, this would be a painstaking process of going through and finding the overhangs and getting it ready. But generally speaking, all you need to do now is go to Support, Auto Support, and then hit apply, and it puts all the supports in there for you, nice and neat. Now, I do still like to take a look and see if there's anything that doesn't look like it's getting properly supported. These should actually print out just fine. All right, so we come back over to select, and now we're going to go to export mode and slice, and we are going to slice and save. And I'm going to put these, let's just put them on my desktop for now. And we're going to call this Orc Pirate Crew CTB save. Okay, so now we are ready. We've exported the slice. By the way, this is what the slice looks like. If we drag this down, when we 3D print this, it starts at the bottom and it's upside down, and it prints by curing UV resin with a UV light. As it builds up upside down, as the plate lifts away from the vat bottom, it just builds it up from top to bottom like that, right? So the next step is for me to go grab a USB or a what do they call that? A USB dongle, a flash drive. Copy this, take it down to my printer, and get this thing printed. I will show you the results once it's done printing. Thank you very much. Okay, now it's time to print our miniatures. All right, that's going to take a while. We'll check back in the morning, because it's going to take at least 3 or 4 hours to print that, maybe. Here's some my recent print set from my Orphans collection. And here's some primed figures that I haven't painted yet. They're just primed. All right, it's printing. Okay, so printing is complete. Now we need to take it off the plate, wash it in the alcohol bath, and then cure it up here. Okay, then we're going to take our guys here and the bases. This doesn't take long, but there we go. That's 99% alcohol, 99% isopropyl alcohol. It dissolves any of the uncured resin and gets that all cleaned up. Just let it run for about 30 seconds or something like that. Doesn't take super long. Here's our miniatures. Go ahead and get those cleaned up and get the supports off and get them dry, and we will be able to see what they look like. Okay, so to attach the bases, I just put a little drop of resin on their feet, and then use this little UV flashlight to cure it. And after about 10 seconds, I can pick them up just fine. So here's our little miniatures that we created. Our captain has the adjusted gun and the adjusted scabbard. You can see where we cut out the sword there. Then our pirate crewman. Now you can't see his tattoos. I printed him too small. We lost that detail. It might be in there a little bit. If I printed him larger, though, it'd come in nice and sharp. So that's the end result. I'll probably base coat these in black primer with my my airbrush tomorrow. Then I will dry brush them like I've done these guys.
and then speed paint them with color in a day or two.